Yeah, Nancy's a nurse now.
Yep, she's kind of retired now. She's disabled. Nancy's oh, your daughter, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a nurse now. Yeah.
She lives in Salem, is it?
Huh?
She was in Salem.
She lives in Orange now.
Yeah, yeah. She lives in Orange now. Yeah. Let's see. My father bought the farm when I was 4. That was 1921. That was 1925, and I started at 6, so it's 1925, 31, 1931.
You went to school here?
Yeah, yeah. I only went to the 4th grade. I didn't learn very much. And then after that I worked on a farm for a while, and then I got in the National Guards, in the 181st Infantry, the 26th Division. And I stayed in that a while, and then in, 39, we went on maneuvers in Potsdam, New York. In 40, we went on maneuvers in South Carolina. And then the war was declared. The Japanese bombed in December. So they brought us into the National Guard. They brought us into the Federal Army. The National Guard was a state army, and they brought us into the Federal Army. And then they moved us to Camp Edwards. It's that air base now on the Cape there. There used to be Camp Edwards. It was an army camp at that time. And we were on coast patrol walking the beach. And then we went up to the Blue Hills in Mattapan, and we walked the beach. Well, from down the Cape, we walked from down the Cape up to Boston, and then we went to Mattapan, the Blue Hills in Mattapan. There was a camp there. We went from Boston up further, and then they transferred us to the Ellsworth, Maine, and we went from Maine to Canada, walking the beach. We did that until May of 1944. Then they brought us up to Fort Dix, New Jersey, is it? Fort Dix, yeah. And from there they transferred me from the 26th Division onto the 90th Infantry Division. That's Texas and Oklahoma National Guard. And we went overseas. We landed in England about, it was Mother's Day, the 12th of May, because they let us send home Mother's Day telegrams. I remember they did that. And then June 6th, I landed on Omaha, Utah beach, made the beach landing. And then on the 14th, I got wounded. I went back to England for a month. I had a piece of shrapnel in the lungs. I'll show it to you after. And I stayed there a month in a hospital. Then I went back to the line, and I fought until we met up with the Russians in Czechoslovakia. And then I spent 6 months in the occupation army after the war was over. And then I came home in October in 1945. I got discharged from the army. Then I got married, and I had Gloria was the oldest of the kids. Then Nancy come up after her about 5 years later. And then after about 5 or 6 years after that, we got twins, Jane and Jimmy. We got a boy and a girl, Jimmy and Jane. I call them Jimmy and Jane. We got them too. And they're all married now. And Gloria has 4 or 5 kids. And Nancy has 4 or 5. Jane has 2. And Jimmy, he didn't want to get involved, so he stayed single, and he stayed home here. And summer before last, he got married. And now they both live upstairs here. Yeah. So now Loretta's 75. I'm 82. By the way, how old are you?
51.
51. I'm 82. I'll be 83 this year. So,
I'll be 53 February 2nd.
yeah, October 2nd, I'll be 83.
What do you remember about Wheeler Brothers store?
Huh?
What can you tell me about Wheeler Brothers store?
Well, my brother Joe, which was my oldest brother, I was about, oh, 7 years old, I guess, when he got married. He got his marriage license from there. That, what would you call that, the place? What would you call the man that gives out marriage?
Justice of the Peace?
Yeah, it was in that store. I remember that's where he got it. Yeah,
Is that Wheeler do it?
yeah, a Wheeler store. Yeah, that's where he got his marriage license.
Did Wheeler give it to him?
I don't know if it was actually Wheeler himself, because I was only 7 then, and I don't remember whether it was actually Wheeler, but it was in that store where he got it anyway. And shortly after that, the town of Hubbardson burned down. Remember? I don't know if you know that.
The town hall?
The whole main street burned down.
In 1929 fire.
Yeah. I remember that too. Yeah.
Go and say like, I remember the fire of 1929.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Say that so that.
Yeah. And that was in 1929 when the fire. It started off in a bar room. They had a bar room there, and that's why now there's no bar rooms in Hubbardson. they outlawed the bar rooms after that. That one day it caught fire and the whole main street practically burned down. You know. So after that they voted no more bar rooms. They have package stores, and they have the Rod and Gun Club they serve there. But I mean, a regular bar room, they don't have them anymore. You know. And then Mr. Wheeler, you know, the library is built, you know, the library in Hubbardson. That's Wheeler, the old Wheeler. I mean, Clark, Mr. Clark. And at that time he was still living, and he says to the town of Hubbardson, he said, if you supply the land, I'll build a university on it. Oh, the old bogies said, we don't want no college in Hubbardson, you know, so they voted again. So he went to Worcester, and Clark University in Worcester, he's the one that built that. But he offered to do it in Hubbardson. But the people, the Wheelers, the Bumpuses, there was 5 or 6 older families. They actually run the town. I mean, you know, you had to go their way or it didn't work. You know.
So was your brother that got the marriage license at Wheeler store?
Yeah, my brother Joseph, yeah.
Okay, can you say my brother Joseph got his marriage license at the Wheeler Brothers store?
Yeah, my brother Joseph, when he got married, he got his marriage license at Wheeler's store. I don't know if it was Mr. Wheeler or another man that gave it to him, but it was in that store. I remember it was in that store he got it. And then 1938, remember the hurricane that came through? That was really a bad hurricane in 1938. As a matter of fact, well, the Morgan Farm, that belonged to, you know, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller and Morgan, those big boys. Well, Morgan was just like Rockefeller. You know, Mr. Rockefeller and Miss Ford and J.P. Morgan, they're all those millionaires there. Well, he owned the farm, yeah. And because I remember when I was a kid, I'd be outside of the house, and the Rolls Royce, you know, with the tires on the side, that touring car, the old Rolls Royce, big Negro guy driving. Mr. Morgan, he'd go by, I'd see him go by drive by with the car. And it's funny, that family, they wouldn't talk to you unless it was business, you know. They were a higher class. They wouldn't talk to ordinary people unless it was business, you know, doing business with them. Yeah.
Did you go to church in Pitcherville? Did you go to the church in Pitcherville?
No, Nancy got married there. She always liked that nice little church in the valley. She called it the church in the dell. She liked it, so she always wanted to get married there, and she did. No, we never went to that church. We went to a church in Gardner, the Holy Rosary Church, a French church. That's where I got married there. But it's been a long, like I say, the house across the street from the Rieta Ranch there, where Fox's had an ice cream store. You probably know that. Well, I was 4 years old. My father bought that farm, and then after I got out of the service in 1945, I bought this piece of land off my father. It belonged to the farm at that time, and built the house here. You know. So it's been, I've been right in this area from when I was 4 years old up until 82. That's 78 years. I've been living right in this, on this same piece of land. I've been living here 78 years now.
So you're a lifer of Hubbardston.
Yeah, yeah. But I never go up that way. I don't bother with them. Let them run the town the way they want. You know, I go to pay my taxes and stuff like that, but I don't interfere with the running of the town at all.
Tell me about the first telephone and electricity.
Oh, you know this house here, the one across the street from the Rieta Ranch, that farmhouse. It was 1947 before we got electricity there. They had it up this end, and they had it from the garden away. But in the middle, they had a stretch in the middle where they didn't have no electricity. So it was 1947 before we got electricity in that house. Imagine that. And then we got the telephone there. And then my mother decided she'd start running a little gas station. So they put two pumps, gas pumps, and it was the kind of, you'd pump up and it'd fill up a glass top and fill it up. So you'd fill up, say you wanted 5 gallons. Well, you'd pump it until it filled up the 5 gallons. And then when you took the hose and put it in, then that would drain out. That's the way the old gas pumps run in those days.
And that was at the farm.
Huh?
That was at the farm here.
Yeah, at the farm. And at that time, the trucks, they had solid rubber tires. They didn't have no tubes. It was a solid rubber tire. In those days, on the trucks, they didn't have the, what do you call it, balloon tires. They had solid rubber tires. As a matter of fact, the Mack trucks, instead of a drive shaft, they had a chain. Oops! They had a chain that went from the motor to the back wheels. It was chain. It wasn't drive shaft. It was chain driven. You know. So there's been a lot of changes since I moved on to the farm.
What kind of cars did you drive?
I remember my brother had a Maxwell, a touring car, Maxwell. If you ever see
Jack Benny?
no, yeah, and the Untouchables. Remember the old touring cars they used to have? Well, I remember my father used to make a home brew, and once in a while they make a little whiskey on the side, you know. So every once in a while, the guy in the police and the old Ford touring cars, they open it with no side, no windows or anything on the side, just the top. Now, they'd come tearing down there, about 5 or 6 cops in the back with shotguns sticking out. If you ever watched the Untouchables, it exactly like that, and old cars like that, and they'd come down and try to catch him with it, but they never did. They never did catch him actually making it. So, but they tried often. I remember they used to come down, sirens blowing, 5 or 6 cops, shotguns sticking out, old Ford touring cars.
Those were in the 30s?
Huh?
Those in the 30s?
Yeah. Well, at that time, a car didn't have a shifting gear and a clutch. They had 3 clutches. One was the brake, one was forward, and the other one was reverse. So if you want to go forward, you press one pedal. If you want to go reverse, you press the other pedal. If you want to stop, you press the third pedal. Because they didn't have a shifting gear on it. That's all it was 3 pedals, you know. Yeah, that was the old Model A and Model T. And then there was the Maxwell, old Maxwell. and then the Stanley steamer that was running around at the time. And let's see what else they had. Oh, they had a Model A and a Model T. No, all those old
I
cars.
have a 1930 Model A,
Yeah, yeah,
fully restored, like brand new.
yeah. And at that time, you could buy a tire for the car, brand new tire, for $4. For $1, you could fill the car up with gas. Fill a whole tank full of gas for $1. And that, oh, talk about the good old days.
So you had animals on the farm, cows and
Yeah, we had a couple of milk cows, and we had the horse doing the work, and every year we'd we'd buy a young bull when he was born in the spring, and have him, what would you call it?
slaughtered.
Yeah. And by Christmas time he probably weighed 150 pounds, and the pigs went about 150 to 200 pounds. And then we had chickens, we had geese. We had a good life, especially during the Depression time. In the cities they didn't have anything, but on the farm you had all the vegetables, you had the eggs from the chickens, you had chickens, you had,
Self-sufficient.
yeah, you ate pretty good during the Depression time on a farm, But in the city it was hard. The only thing, like bread, my father used to go downtown, wait in line for maybe an hour just to get some bread, when they were giving out bread. But the rest of the food, like I say, the chickens and the eggs and the milk from the cow and the butter, churn the cream, make butter. So that we had a pretty good life. It didn't have no money. As a matter of fact, I forget which year it was, but the farm was up for sale, and almost all during the Depression, the farm, almost all the houses in Hubbardston were up for sale for taxes. Well, my father's farm was 37 acres of land, all this here, and the farmhouse and everything. The taxes were $38. 4 years in a row it was up for sale for $38, and nobody could buy it. Nobody had $38 to buy it. Imagine that. You could have bought the whole town of Hubbardston for a couple of $1,000s. All the houses were on sale, for taxes. Yeah, a big farm like that, the taxes were only $37. Nobody could buy it. They didn't have $37 to buy it with.
So that farm, all this land was with that farm at one time?
Well, you take from the pond, okay, up the main road to the pond, over to the railroad tracks, up to this road and over to the railroad tracks, and the railroad tracks runs here. All this whole area was belonged to the farm.
Now the schoolhouse was kind of a block out, right?
Yeah, well, the schoolhouse originally belonged to the farm, but on a deed it said they could use the land for a schoolhouse, and then after they didn't have school anymore, the land would go back to the farm. But that was interesting. When they closed the schoolhouse and they built a new one in the center of town, they had a quiet town meeting, and I think it was I'll remember the fellow's name, but they had a nice quiet town meeting, and for $400 they sold it to this guy and gave him a quick claim deed. And all the time it belonged to the farm, and yet that's what they did. He got a quick claim deed and got the whole thing, and for $400, Prentice was the name of the man that bought it. They had a nice quiet town meeting. They gave him a quick claim deed, and my father lost it. Of course, my father wasn't too bright. He came down from Canada and never went to school or anything, so he wasn't educated enough. So he wasn't smart enough. He could have taken him to court because his deed said, the land belonged to the farm, and it was only lent to the town for the school, and then it returned to the farm when the school was over. He could have got it back, but he didn't have the education to understand things like that. But that's how that happened.
They cut ice over here on the pond.
Oh yeah, yeah, my father worked there. Well, you know where they cut ice? Right now there's a fence, just before the cemetery there's a fence across there, and then there's a stone wall here in the driveway. Well, Mr. Raspin that lives across the street, he told my father, he says, you got more land than where that fence is, he says. Because there's a little pond here, and the road goes over, and then a big pond, so there's really two ponds there, a small one and then a big one. He says, I helped dig that pond to have ice for the farmhouse. So he says, I know that, you got more land than that. So my father went to Gardner and got a surveyor. And we surveyed from here to the railroad track, and from the railroad track, we surveyed way past that, about a quarter of the way of the pond right now. And then back along that cemetery wall, and then over here. So my father asked him, he says, the line is here, and you surveyed up to there, and all the way over here. There's 16 acres there. He says, what's the score? Well, he said, your deed reads more or less, 37 acres, more or less. Well, anyway, he let that go by, but that was about 15 years since he had the farm. So old man Aspen, he kept telling him, you got more land than what they're claiming you have there. So he got a lawyer from Worcester, and I went with him too. So we surveyed there, and we surveyed, here's the fence line here. He surveyed way over to here, and down across the cemetery, and he told my father, he says, my father says, well, what can I do? Well, he says, get a lawyer and take him to court and ask him to see the deed they have for that piece of land. He said, you got a deed for that piece of land, see if they got one. So they went to court. But all that time, that Providence Ice Company had an ice house there. I don't know if you remember when the ice house was there. Well, they had an ice house there. Oh, you know how big the high school is in Gardner? It was about that size. Oh, it stretched like that, and then they had a run in the middle where they'd shoot the ice off into different rooms, Well, anyway, Ben sold the ice company from Providence. For 10 years, he sold them ice. My father had even helped them cut the ice. And summertime, the train would come up and they'd load it and bring it to Providence. They call it a Providence Ice Company. And then the hurricane came, and he cut all the pine and sold it to the government, that the hurricane had knocked down. And he was there, but it was 20 years the second time my father brought him to court. So what happened there, it had cost him probably, well, with what the money he got from the ice house and having the land for 20 years, it would have run $2-3 million. You know what I mean? It would have cost him to repay everything that he had got. So there was a little shady deal. He got a quick claim deed. My father didn't get nothing. And my father had paid taxes on that land for 20 years on that piece of land, And well, if you had to pay somebody $3 million, and you offered the other guy's lawyer $1 million to forget it, he'd forget it. For $1 million, he'd forget it, and that's what they did. So he didn't get nothing. And he had paid taxes on that land for 20 years. So he lost there too, all because no education. So him and my mother, they were born on Prince Edward Island in Canada. And neither one had went to school. They were just farmers. They didn't have no schools, as a matter of fact. So they never had any schooling or anything. So they weren't, they could get along, but they weren't educated that much to understand about laws and stuff. So they got taken a couple of times there real bad, Oh, I'll show you that. So there's a lot of history there gone by. But like I say, I was wounded once, and then I finished the war. We went through, we landed in England. We fought in France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Czechoslovakia, and the northern part of Austria. All those countries we walked every step of the way. Took us 11 months from where we landed on the beach till we met the Russians in Czechoslovakia. It took us 11 months, and we walked every bit of the way up there.
And did you go in horse and wagon through here and stuff?
Well, my father did before I was born, because I was next to the last. There was 8 in our family, so I had see, Olive, Mary, 2 sisters, and I had Joseph, my brother Joe, and Peter, and Frank, and Alton. I had 4 brothers and 2 sisters born before me. So at that time, the horse and buggies were going by. But by the time I got, the cars were just starting to go by. That was in, see, I was born 1921, 22, 1925. Well, from 25 on, I lived at the farm, so they had cars at that time. Yeah.
Tell me about the road here and the construction of it, and asphalt first time or anything like that.
Oh, I'd say that it was a rough tar road, rough asphalt road, and let's see, about 1925, 26 it was asphalt. But before that, my father used to tell me he'd come up with a wagon, because he worked for a coal company in Gardner. They sold coal, and they hauled it with horses and wagons, wagons and horses. They didn't have any trucks at that time, so they'd haul the coal with wagons. And he was telling me on this road, it was a wagon road, it wasn't paved or nothing,
You remember the dance hall in town?
Yeah.
Tell me about the Clark store and about movies there and dances.
Yeah, but like I say, I was until the town burned down. See, I was only about 7 years old when it burned down, so I didn't get really to know too much about the dance hall. That there's a new building there now. What's it, an apartment building next to the store?
There's a house there.
Yeah, well, that's where the dance hall used to be, and then across the street was a police station and a jail. Well, all they had is a 8x8. It looked like a cage. It looked like if you had a gorilla or something in a cage. Well, that's what the jail looked like. Just a cage made of steel. I remember seeing that after the fire was burned. After the fire burned out, the cage was still there. They had that. Yeah, another thing too. It was way back, and I probably was 10 or 12 years old. The tax collector collected all the taxes from town, and he took off. He ran away with all the taxes in town. He skipped out, stole all the taxes, and skipped out. But it's been a nice place to live until the people right now. If you go down this road, house. Well, last year I think they gave out about 350 house permits to build. But before that, well, when we were young, 10, 12 years old, we could go up the top of this hill and slide down with sleds and never worry about any cars. Because if one car came by during the day, you were doing good, So we'd slide down that hill all night long. Never bothered, the cars never bothered us, because hardly a car, some nights a car didn't go by at all, like I say, there wasn't too many cars out at them days. And the ones they did have were Model Ts, Model As, uh, uh, that other one there.
Maxwell's. Maxwell's and Stevens.
Yeah, the Maxwell, the Stanley Steamer. So that Stanley Steamer didn't last too long. I don't know why, but it didn't last. It was a big motor, and you had to fire up the motor to get the steam, you know. So that didn't last at all. No.
So you
Yeah.
had an house out back?
Huh?
You had an outhouse?
Oh yeah, a house out and a pail in a hall between all the. You'd have all the bedrooms on the main hall, and there'd be a pail there during the night. 'Cause you couldn't walk out to the barn during the night, so you had to use the pail, you know. And that was up until 1948, because the electricity didn't come in till 47, and then it took about a year before you get a water pump in and stuff like that, you know. So.
So your family canned a lot of the food?
Oh yeah. Can and salt it down. You know, when you kill a pig, you salt a lot of the meat. You know, you make up a brine and put the meat in there. And it didn't last all winter when it was salted. You know, then all you had to do was take it and rinse it out and boil it and get the salt out before you actually cooked it. You know. And then the pond there, we had plenty of fish. When I was, I think I was about 9, and my brother Alton was a year older than me. I was 20 years old, and he was 21 when he died. He died at the age of 21. Well, we were about 8, 9 years old, and we went down the pond. We just had homemade tack. We didn't have a good fishing tackle, like they got today. Just a stick with a line hanging in it. In an hour, we took out 100 pickerel, anywhere from 18 to 20 inches long. Oh, the fish were beautiful in those days. But a few years after, I'd say when I was around 18 or 19 years old, Vince wanted the Fish and Game guys to stock the pond down South Gardner where the factory is. He wanted them to stock that with largemouth bass. But they made a mistake and they dumped the bass in this pond here. He wasn't too happy about that. But the bass are so big, they'd eat up anything else. So the pickerel aren't doing too good, but the bass are doing good. You can go down there now and get a 24-inch bass, 8, 9, 10 pounds. So it's good. The bass fishing is good there. Nice fishing right now. And when Bent's, the shop went bankrupt and they sold all that land. Some outfit from Worcester, a housing project, they got a housing project. They bought this end of it, and there's, I think, 4 condos there, big places. And then another guy bought the other end. So now the fishing on the bass is good, but the rest of the fish, the bass are so big. As a matter of fact, a bass will eat up 90% of its own young. They'll eat anything, the bass.
Morgan Pond, that's my favorite spot.
Yeah, that's not bad fishing there. If you go way down the other end, you know where that training camp is? Well, that's the beginning of the pond. So if you go way down there, they got stumps there. I'd say as big as this, and then the roots go way out, and there's nice holes for the bass to get in those holes. There's some nice bass in there. And Arrow Ahola, he lives right there. Well, his land comes almost up to the pond, so he fishes from that side there.
I went to school with his daughter.
Huh?
I went to school with his daughter. I went to school with his daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, we fished together a few times. We went down to Moosehorn. We fished out of Moosehorn. Moosehorn's a nice place. They got the town has a road down with a pipe, you know, for pumping water for fire. So there's nice bass in that pond too. Another nice place to fish is Peter Sam. You know, when you go to Hubbardston, take the Peter Sam Road, and when you get a ways down, it's kind of a little village, and if you turn right, there's a package store there. Well, right after the package store, there's a nice pond there. There's good fishing there too. Good bass fishing in that pond. Crappie, you know what a crappie is? So one of the women that lived there that has a camp there, she said her son and one of the fellows that worked with me in the shop fished 21 inches, 2.5 pounds, those crappies. Oh, there's some beauties in there. Now, that's big for a crappie. Usually they're about the size of a bluegill, you know. But these 21 inches, weighing 2.5 pounds. She said the woman that lives in that camp, said her son had got one there that weighed 2.5 pounds. And the fellow that worked with me in the shop, he got one that weighed 2.5 pounds.
What do you remember about some of the little mills and shops that were all scattered here and there?
No, they were about all gone by the time I...
But what can you tell me that you know about them? What can you tell me about the...
Well, let me see it. So Gardner, they bought a piece of Hubbardston, a piece of Templeton, a piece of Westminster, and they created the town of the city of Gardner. Because the railroad could get in easy, it was flat land. That's how Gardner was established, by buying the land from Hubbardston, Templeton, and Westminster, and the railroad, it was flat, so the railroad could get all over the town. The trouble with Hubbardston, the railroad was down, you know where this one is, down, and the town was so high up, there's no way the railroad could get into town.
I heard that all the farmers brought their milk to the train station.
Yeah, either that or the families down there used to bring it up to the crossroads here. You know, right at the crossroad?
Yeah.
Well, the farmers down the Pittsville Road used to bring it up to there. And the truck would pick it up and bring it to Gardner. And then they'd put it on the train in Gardner. But in Hubbardston, then they'd go to the railroad station. But here, the cans would be right at the four corners here. All the farmers, the local farmers here would bring them there, and then the truck would pick it up there. Yeah.
You know, my great-grandfather, Asa LeCoux. My great-grandfather was Asa LeCoux.
Yeah.
He lived in Pitcherville.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. Hubbermackies, I remember them, lived down there. And like I say, I was young at that, and then by 17 I was in the service, so I missed a lot of the people. Yeah, I grew up away from here, you know.
So you knew Axel Habermacki.
Axel, yeah, and Butch Hubbermacki, Axel, and then
Herman Nimwa.
Nyman, yeah, I can't pronounce it. Nyman, yeah, and up the top of the hill here was oh geez, that's the trouble when you get 82. You kind of forget the names. And Halton, the family, Halton, just the top of the hill, the farmhouse. Ed Halton, you must have known him. Ano Halton and Solo
He was
Halton.
my bus driver.
Yeah, yeah. They lived just up the top of the hill here. But like I say, at 82,
You got 20 years, 30 years on me.
yeah, sometime I gotta stop and think, you know. What happened yesterday was all right, but what happened further back takes me a little time to place it, you know.
My mother was born in 1921.
That's when I was born, October 21, yeah.
And my dad was born 1907.
Yeah,
So there's 13 years between, 14 years between.
yeah. Well, my father was born in Canada, and my mother was born in Canada too, in Prince Edward Island. They were born there. My gra-
French Canadian then?
yeah, yeah. I think, and well, my mother must have been on a little on the Bridget Terrio was her maiden name. That sounds more like a Irish, doesn't it?
There you go.
Bridget Terrio. Of course, it could be French too, but they were mixed up French and Irish. Yeah, my father, my grandfather, was a captain of a big fishing boat, well, fairly big. But what they did, they had a mother boat, and then they had a lot of smaller boats, and then they had like rowboats, you know. Well, they'd fill up the smaller boat, and then they'd pull alongside the mother boat, and they'd unload that, and they'd go back out. So they stayed out about 2 weeks, you know. They stayed out fishing about 2 weeks, and he was the captain on that. My father and my grandfather both worked on that. My father's brother worked on that. I don't know if you believe in the old days you used to read tea leaves in the cup. I don't know if you believe in that, but my grandmother used to read tea leaves for my mother when they lived down here on the farm. So while I was in the service, every morning she just did it for her and my mother. She didn't do it for anybody else. She was awful religious. So she'd read the tea leaves. So this morning, on June 14th, she was reading the tea leaves for my mother. Oh, she says, it looks like the boy got hurt, she says. It doesn't look too bad. She said, we should get a letter from him within 2 or 3 days. Well, on that morning, I got wounded. And I went back to England to the hospital. And then I had one of the orderlies write a letter for me and send it home, telling them about it. So 3 days later, they got my letter, but she saw it in the tea leaves that I had got wounded. Well, like you saw where the shrapnel was, you know, it was, well, it's bad enough in a way, but not real serious, you know. But she saw it in the tea leaves and showed my mother. She said, it looks like the boy got hurt. She said, it don't look too bad, but she says, we'll get a letter from him in a few days. And they did get my letter saying, I told him, you know, I was wounded, but it wasn't that bad. You know. Oh, she was good on those tea leaves. But she was very religious. It was nothing when she went to bed at night, be kneeling there an hour, 2 hours praying. You know, she really, really religious. Her mother walked to church. This was in Canada, way out in the woods. I mean, really out in the woods. Her mother walked 4 miles to Canada with the family, 4 miles to the church with the family, and 4 miles back. Their house was 4 miles away from the church. So they walked 4 miles to the church and 4 miles back. And her mother said, I'm going to lay down and take a rest before I make dinner. She never woke up. She was 104. And my grandmother, her daughter, my grandmother, she died in Pittsburgh at 103 and 9 months. And she always told me that I'd have a long life. So on her side, they do have a long life, 104, 103 and 9 months, you know. She said I'd have a long life too.
My mother's side, everyone died in their 60s, 62, 65.
Yeah.
My dad's side, they were going into their 80s. My
Yeah.
dad was 88.
Yeah. Well, on my grandmother's side, like I say, her mother lived to be 104 and walked 8 miles to church that morning and laid down and never woke up. And she was, my grandmother's was 103 and 9 months.
That's the best way to go, though.
And
That's the best way to go, though.
yeah, and at 16, she had a toothache, and of course, out on the farms in Canada, there was no doctors or nothing. You know, it was all home remedies. That's all they had. So my grandfather gave her his pipe, and for the smoke, you know, the nicotine and the smoke to kill the pain, the toothache from the pain. but she got in the habit of smoking. She smoked a pipe all her life. She used to smoke, well, when she was down here at 90 and 100, pipe tobacco used to come in a can, Prince Albert, pipe tobacco. She used to smoke a can of Prince Albert tobacco. It lasted her a week. But after every meal, she'd fill her pipe and have a pipe.
I smoke a pipe.
Yeah, she smoked a pipe all her life. She died at 103 and 9 months. Yeah,
I'm a pipe smoker.
yeah. No, I had, 20 years ago, I had a little offbeat on the heart. It boom, 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 boom. You know, so I went into the hospital and they straightened me out on that and gave me some medicine that took care. So I asked the doctor, I said, I imagine if I quit smoking, it wouldn't hurt. No, he said it wouldn't hurt. So I just threw them away and never bothered. That was the easiest thing I ever did, stop smoking. But I wanted to do it. You know, a lot of people, like my wife, she doesn't want to stop smoking. No. So there's no way she's going to quit. You got to want to yourself, you know. I thought to myself, it's costing me money. It's ruining my health. I get up in the morning and I cough, the phlegm in the lungs, you know, you cough up the, you know. I said, what the heck am I doing it for? So I convinced myself that it was no good and I didn't want it. So it never bothered me to quit.
What, $5, $6?
Huh?
The $5, $6 a pack now.
Yeah, it never did bother me. That was the easiest thing I ever did, was quit smoking. But like I say, because I wanted to do it, you know, I convinced myself that it wasn't doing me no good. It was costing me money. From here to my car in the driveway, I'd cough, and by the time I got the car, the tears were coming out of my eyes from, you know, from coughing too much. I said, man, I got to do something. So I quit. And after that, before, my sinus, I couldn't breathe through my nose. It was always stuffed up, you know. About a month and a half after I stopped, my sinus cleared up. You know. The food tastes better. You'd be surprised the difference, you know. But I can't convince a wife on it, you know.
Well, you've got a few stories here that I definitely can use.
Huh?
A few stories here that are going to be good. A few things I got here I'm really going to work out.
Yeah, well, like I say, if you got one of these, like it tells every factory, and it shows where the factories were all through. If you got one of those, yeah.
I didn't even think of that, but
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
down over there.
Yeah, it gets all the name of the factories and see the spots. It tells wherever their factories are. Yeah, yeah, that's a nice little thing.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.